is 20 to 9. Good to have you with us this morning. So Rishi Sunak will urge President Macron to go further on joint efforts to prevent migrant crossings the English Channel in talks later today.
The Prime Minister and his counterpart will meet at the Elysee Palace today alongside senior ministers in the first bilateral summit between the countries for 5 years. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, is due to attend the talks and he joins us now from Paris. Good morning to you. You're smiling, which is a great start because a lot feels like it's riding on this get-together. If Rishi Sunak wants to stop the boats, what can he expect Emmanuel Macron to give him?
OK, the first thing we need to remember is that this summit covers a whole range of bilateral issues. So with the Prime Minister, we have a Trade Minister, we have the Defence Secretary, we have Transport Secretary, we have the Environment Secretary and others. So this summit covers a wide range of issues. Understandably, a lot of people are interested in the migration-related stuff. It's a very important issue for both France and the UK. And as you said in your introduction, we have already been working closely with the French authorities and the French government for a while. The French have prevented around half of the attempted small boat channel crossings. We're going to be working closely with them to help them help us, and vice versa. This is a joint challenge and requires a joint solution, and that's what we'll be discussing. That's what the Prime Minister and the President will be discussing throughout today.
There may be a range of issues actually being discussed, but it's very much dealing with the boats and this crossing that the government has been talking about, that Rishi Sunak has been talking about, and has been pitched by those from the government that are briefing reporters that that's what the mission's main goal is, to see some movement on that, isn't it? So it's reasonable that we would think that was an important issue. The problem is that we don't really know what can come out of this, do we? And we don't even really know if Emmanuel Macron will agree with the sort of changes that are trying to be made. We've got issues with the Court of Human Rights as well, say European Court of Human Rights. Can we really expect anything now that we're no longer a member of the EU and we've stepped away from that agreement?
Well, we are still very much a member of the ECHR. And the work that we have been doing with France over the last couple of years has been closely coordinated, even though we chose to leave the European Union, because this is a challenge for both France and for the UK and other EU member states, to be fair. But we have been doing a lot of work. And you're right, the migration issue is one that is very, very important to the British people, therefore, of course, very, very important to the British government, but it's also very important to the French people and the French government. It's an issue which affects both our countries. We are working together to address this issue. We're doing work domestically with our illegal migration bill. This summit is in part to enhance the pre-existing, to build on the pre-existing work that we're doing with the French government and the French authorities on this, because we both have a massive incentive to get this sorted, because it affects France and it affects the UK as well.
That incentive, of course, tends to cost a lot of money, doesn't it? I think 2014, we committed slightly more than £232 million in agreements with the French government. Last November, it was another euros. It was 72 million euros last November. We're reading figures of £200 million over the next 3 years, something like £70 million a year. But, of course, the numbers aren't getting any less, are they, Mr Cleverly? Are we just throwing good money after bad? And the solution to this isn't just putting more patrols on northern France, and actually it's something more interesting, more complicated.
Well, it is a complicated issue. You're right to highlight the fact that there are no simple solutions, and anyone that advocates that this could be resolved if only we did this one thing probably don't really understand the complexity of the issue. The French authorities have been stopping an increasing number of attempted crossings, but the scale of this has increased enormously, exponentially over the last few years, which is why we need to enhance our pre-existing work and relationship with the French authorities to keep track of the increasing number of attempted crossings. And so it is inevitable that we will need to build on the work we're already doing and do additional stuff. That's why we're bringing forward the illegal migration bill, because the legal structures that were designed to deal with perhaps a few hundred people are now being forced to deal with many, many thousands of people. That's not what those structures were designed for. They are unable, unless they are amended, which is what we're seeking to do, they are unable to deal with the unprecedented level of demand that we're seeing both in Europe and in the UK.
Yeah. And the way you're trying to amend it, we know isn't necessarily going to be legal yet, and that's a battle that's going to have to be had. And can we just talk about, I know we don't have you for very long.
We believe it to be legal.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
That's why we're pursuing this.
Yeah.
And
we will find out
in
due course.
Coming to journeys at home,
we
need to do, because
and
you're in Paris.
You're there.
Anybody north of Birmingham will be very concerned about your plans for HS2, won't they, this morning? You shelved it for 2 years. It puts a huge hole in any idea of levelling up, and it's something that was there that people voted for you on to deliver, and you're now going to not do so.
Well, what's been announced is a delay in the delivery of HS2 because in the intervening period of time since the election where we made that commitment, we have been hit with two huge events, COVID and Russia's attempted invasion of Ukraine, which have massively put strain on the UK economy. And so when you have circumstances like that, you have to adapt your plans. But our commitment to regional development across the UK is absolutely firm. We have already seen a positive impact from the HS2. There have been literally thousands of jobs that have been created in the West Midlands as a direct result of HS2. We're still absolutely committed to it, but we've got to be realistic. When we had the economic impact of things like COVID and Russia's attempted invasion of Ukraine, we have to deal with the realities. And that has meant that we are going to introduce a small delay in the delivery of that really important.
Well, you say small delay. 2 years isn't a small delay to those people who suddenly aren't going to get that extension. But we understand there are extenuating circumstances that you couldn't have foreseen. Sadly, we're out of time. We do appreciate your brevity with us this morning, Mr. Cleverly, and we hope this summit comes to some sort of conclusions that will really help with the situation.